Hey, Mason here. Just thought I'll make a quick update on my plans for league start in the 3.26 league. But I just thought I wanted to cover some of the changes they made. So every single league, I do a Sanctum rush, and Sanctum got nerfed, which is kind of unfortunate. But I guess it is, I don't know if it's expected or not, but Mark did mention it in the interview. So the TLDR is that you can only get one Divine in the fonts on floor 3, and they reduce the chance for Divines in general. So the first one is that we don't know how much they reduced it by, so it's very hard to say how much. So my plan is to just run Sanctum and see how it feels in the first week. And if it's really bad, I'm going to swap to Heist and just make a Decoy Totem Heist runner. And just do Heist only, like a purely Heist character. But I was thinking I'll do some data collection on Sanctum anyways, because I have a ton of data for the previous league, so we can see how much they nerfed it by in the end. The one other thing that makes me a bit more motivated to actually play Sanctum again is one, aside from enjoying Sanctum by itself, they added a way for it to get gold, which is massive because previously you can't use the auction house as a Sanctum runner, which is like absolute terrible quality of life. So this is huge. Thank you, Mark, for adding gold. Amen. But unfortunately, Sanctum got nerfed, so we'll see how much it got nerfed. So in regards to the data I was talking about, in 3.25, I gathered 100 and I think it was like 125 runs, 28 runs or something. I tested multiple strategies, so mainly I tested merchant choice strategies with like double merchant +2 merchant choices with Lamp, Chalice, Blood of Innocence, and merchant, like +1 merchant choice. I also ended up testing room reveals. So the way you read this is the average occurrence of one divine was these. So for all merchant choice, which was 90 sample size, around 0.7, and the average divine choice for room reveal was 0.66, which is interesting because it's actually lower, but it's not lower by much, right? So it's around 0.7 in general to hit either one divine or two divine. And one divine or two divine. So in the end, this one minuses the relic cost. You can see these are the kind of average costs. I think this one here is scuffed, but the general idea is that it's around 3 divine. You can see 3 divine, 2.5, 2.2, 2 divine, 1.7. So around like 2 to 3 divine per sanctum, and you run 3 per hour. That's like 9 divine, right? 6 to 9 divine per hour. So it's like it's still pretty like it's like okay. Let's just say 10 divine, right? If we want to round up to be generous. Say they nerf it down to what 6 divine. It's like 40% nerfed. 8 divine. It's 20% nerfed. It's hard to say how much, but the goal is to get some testing, get some data, and then compare it to what I have in the previous patch for my Sanctum running data. The goal of this was to figure out which strategy was better. Personally, I think merchant choice is likely a dead strategy now. Like you can probably play it and it'll probably be fine, but it won't be as profitable as room reveal. But I think there's also the chance that relic quantity is still pretty good because, especially with OSIN. Oh, okay. Look, it's just original sin. You're just gambling for that, really. The rest of them, it's not really worth that much. I think Visage, Samstone Visage, will get played in rolling magma saboteur builds. Internal Damnation is basically a dead item, so you really only have Visage and Osin. So it's like it's up to you if you want to farm relic. I probably will check the prices and see which one is better. But I think I might just default to room reveal because that's what I normally do, and that's by far the fastest because you don't have to like deal with the merchants and getting gold and stuff like that, like the Sanctum gold. Okay, what am I actually going to be playing? So Kua has made a Penance Brand video again. I'm just going to be playing Penance Brand again because it's just my favorite playstyle. So to start, leveling will be Armageddon Brand, Wave of Conviction. Very, very standard Inquisitor leveling. I will just link Kua's channel in the description below and you go check him out. And he will have this spreadsheet in his description and you can just grab it from there. Idea will just be Armor Brand leveling. We'd be playing Energy Blade. So very standard Energy Blade start. And then after that, once I've played enough Energy Blade, I'm going to either decide to go for a Power Chest stacker. Frenzy Relicash is faster. I think Power Relicash will be cheaper. It will either be one of those two options. Or I finish the Sanctum Runner, like the Energy Blade Sanctum Runner. Or I swap over to Captain Lancer's Energy Blade setup, which he has made a video about recently. So it's either going to be those 3 choices. If Sanctum is really, really bad, and I'm feeling like less motivated, less defeated, I just don't want to play, right? I think I'm going to make a heist runner, like a Decoy Totem Pathfinder, and I'm just going to spam heist for the replica bases. So replica Alberons will be worth a lot. Replica Badge of the Brotherhood will be worth a lot, and all the heist bases, whatever, like the rings, Simplex, Focus, all that stuff will be still worth a lot. So I think it will be still pretty decent in terms of profits. We'll see how it feels. I haven't really liked heist that much because clicking on doors is not very fun. But I feel like with a very, very optimal setup with like 500 move speed with decoy totem and stuff like that, and permanent flasks, and then very, very fast rogues, the exiles, like the little guys in heist, I think it's probably like fine. Like I don't think it's a big deal. Cool. So what am I going to be doing after? Should I open up POB? So me and a mate had been working on this POB since patch notes came out, and we have both decided that we were going to probably play this once we farmed enough money with our money makers, so Sanctum or Heist. And it's going to be a champion double strike of momentum trauma stacking Valdo farmer. So to kind of start it off, the build will be using double strike of momentum because double strike of momentum gets more attack speed for each stage, and you get a stage every time you attack, so you ramp your attack speed to really high amounts. Through ramping your attack speed, you have a Squire, so your main skill is in the Scepter, and then your trauma is in the Squire. It doesn't really matter, but it's linked with trauma support, which gives you flat fizz every time you get a stack of trauma. So the idea is that once you hit 10 stacks, you attack it like 20 times per second, 10 to 20 times per second, depending on your stacks. So at 0 stacks, it's 8 times per second, and then you get 1 stack. Like after 1 attack, it will ramp and ramp and ramp and ramp. You can see the attack speed here ramping. Ramps 10 stacks, which is the max. You're attacking 20 times per second. That's 20 trauma per second you're gaining. You're also hitting yourself a ton of times per second. But we'll be using a Divine Flesh to kind of mitigate that on your ES. And we have some recoup. So I think we have some recoup here. Yep. Some recoup on our rings to kind of mitigate that for life. So that's the idea, at least for this build. You get a ton of damage from scaling attack speed and trauma and duration. Then you're playing Champion, because Champion got a massive buff. Currently, I'm still on the old version of POB, but I'll probably update that right after this video. But the idea is that you're taking first to strike last of 4, and you can proc this because you're hitting yourself, so you might go below low life, like once every 20 seconds. So ideally, you would have permanent adrenaline from this. Then you have maximum fortification. That's a new node here. It got buffed. And then in the config, you have worthy foe, which is your hits can't be evaded and enemies taunted by you take increased damage. And then you have unstoppable hero, because we're stacking fortify. So we have 40 fortification stacks. This ends up being 60. So it'd be 20 times 3, because it's 3% more armor innovation and 3% increased attack speed. And a rune graft for increased ES. The idea is that your defensive layers are you're stacking endurance charges. So you can see here I have 7 endurance charges. And you have 40 fortification. So Champion's new node that I think it was like this one here makes so that you have max fortification. And then you have these gloves here from I think it's Exarch that give you 10 fortification. And you have these points here which give you 6 fortification. And then you have a timeless jewel here with fortification, 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 and fortification. So you have a total of 40 fortification. Using this, fortification plus endurance charges. And the way you're getting your endurance charges are through this node here. And you're hitting yourself. You're constantly hitting yourself because you're taking so many times per second. So this should be relatively easy to proc. But yeah, that's the idea. So your defensive shell is having a decent amount of ES from having an ES armor and an ES helm. And then you have, what's it over here? You have block. And the way you're getting block is you have a shield first. And then you're clicking like block nodes on the tree. I think there was, oh yeah, and then block nodes on your clusters, like this one here. And this one here as well. And that's how you're getting to this much block. And you're also clicking this keystone here, which makes it so your spell block also gets pushed up without needing to use Tempest Shield. And that's how you mitigate with block. And then you have a ton of evasion from just having evasion gear as well as evasion flasks. So in this case, actually, I don't even think we have an evasion flask. Yeah, we don't. It's just mostly just from, what was it from? You can see here. So not much from the armor, but you have a ton from like Grace and so on the rings. And have a bunch of it on the tree, which then results in around 88% evasion chance. So the idea is that, and the Watcher's Eye as well, Watcher's Eye mod. This one here. Tries to evade attacks while inflicted by grace. So the idea is that you have good amounts of block, good amounts of evasion, so that you can do both types of Valdo maps, like in case there's one that breaks block or one that breaks evasion. Your armor is pretty low because you're not building armor, but you're mitigating fizz through other means. So in this case, the keyway will be Brutal Fervor Flesh and Flame plus Strength of Blood. So this was some tech that I think Jung Rome posted about like a few months, like 9 months ago or something. So in the previous patch. But the idea is that Brutal Fervor will give you Overleech. They don't remove them when life is filled. And then you have some leech here. You have some instant leech as well. And you can hopefully get some DR from Strength of Blood to help mitigate with the trauma stacks. And then your life regen I mentioned before will be Recoup and Divine Shield. And the rest of it's kind of just generic life lows, aura nodes, endurance charges, more generic life, what do you call it? Anti-crit nodes. Just kind of generic defensive shell. So your offense is all from trauma stacking and attack speed and duration. And then your defensives are all from fortify, endurance charges, a high hit pool. Like adrenaline can help. Immortal core when it's up. Right now this is without immortal core. If I put on immortal core, it goes up even higher. So you can see here off and on. The fizz hit goes up immensely. The rest of them are just like kind of whatever. But that's the idea at least. So the reason why we've decided to pick this is because we think it will be cheaper than playing either Multi-Strike the Zenith Jug or Strength Stack Berserker with Alberon's Warpath. Like, it will be cheaper. And so that's the kind of idea of this. Having a cheaper setup for Valdo farming to try and, I guess, avoid some of the more expensive setups on the market. In terms of actual gear, most of this gear here is pretty min-maxed, but you have a very expensive scepter that's probably quite hard to craft now with the changes. You can use an X, which is, I think, like 10% less damage. It's not that bad. And if it's easy to craft, it will be better. A Squire, so that your double strike of momentum is 6 linked. So it would be 3 links here and 3 links here. So tick, tick, tick. ES helmet for just pure ES to increase hit pool. ES chest. So the reduced attribute requirements is very, very helpful because the amount of int this build needs is quite high, and it's very annoying to meet it. So using a Tellering Orb to try and get that reduced attribute requirements. These gloves here are just for Fortify. These boots here are for endurance charges. But you can also run Stampede. So Stampede with maximum endurance charge corruption will make it so that Nature's Patience, this one right here, Nature's Patience won't like slow you down. It will like feel very nice to play in terms of quality of life. I like the Relication version more personally because I think it's a lot safer to have permanent endurance charges. Because Immortal Core will be eating your endurance charges all the time. These ones here. But again, Immortal Core doesn't work with Ralakesh, so that's why we have this node right here to gain endurance charge when we hit ourselves. Ash of the Stars gives a ton of quality. This quality is insane because Trauma, I think, has like a quality scaling on it. Oh, sorry, not Trauma. It was like double dual strike. Yeah, 4% more attack speed for each stage. And that's like insane quality scaling. So it results in Ash of the Stars giving like 50% more damage, like 40% more damage. It's crazy. This ring here is just Life, ES, Int, Chaos Res, and Recoup. This one's a mirror. This one will be... We won't be swapping to this build until Mage Blood is finished. So that's just like how it goes. This tincture is just for more damage. The reason why you can sustain this, so without it you're doing like 40 mil. With it you're doing like double damage, more than double damage. Ideally with this node right here, you're hitting yourself a ton. So you're recouping a ton of damage taken. So that should be enough to sustain mana. You have a tiny bit of mana leech over here as well. In terms of flasks, it will just be... We'll be using triple elemental flask to put our resist to 90. And in combination with fire like max res jewels, this should help us cap to 90 without the needing of melting of flesh. Which will make the res capping a lot easier. Silver flask is just for quality of life and speed. No quicksilver, because this build will be generally stationary because double strike of momentum requires you to be stationary. But the idea is that we'll probably just move with blinks. or just move with Leap Slam. So it's not really that big of a deal. So Leap Slam is here, and I think there's a blink in one of the other links. But if there's not, we can just chuck it in. In terms of Flesh and Flame, I've talked about this before. We'll be using Brutal Fervor to enable Strength of Blood. Cluster Jewels are Martial Prowess and a block one. And it's like a Balance of Terror, and we'll be self-casting Elemental Weakness. These are the Res Jewels. This one here is for the Fortify and Strength of Blood. And Affinities for the Nature's Patience. Thread of Hope is for these particular nodes here that look pretty good. It's like block nodes, endurance charge nodes, mana leech node, that kind of stuff. Just to mainly save on points. The POB is level 99 because in the config we have a rune graft. So what will happen is that you will just allocate some mastery, like any of them, and then just click the rune craft on it. So that's basically why this is level 99. But that's the plan. So the plan is to make this build. I'm going to personally be deep delving with this build, and Valdo farming. That's the idea. I'm not really sure how good a trauma stacking build is for Valdo farming, even with these kind of stats. Because I did experience something in the past when I was deep delving with a trauma stacking character, where if I hit myself on the same server tick as a mob hit me, I would die. Because I would hit myself to like 50% HP, and then the mob would hit me at the 50% HP moment, and I would just die. I'm not really sure if this will be an issue with this build. But hopefully with enough recoup and enough defenses, it should be okay. The idea is that we make a build that's unique and that hopefully avoids some of the pitfalls that other builds will. So we don't have to compete with Molten Strike of the Zenith. We don't have to compete with Alberon's Warpath. It's mainly just Molten Strike of the Zenith. The idea is to try not to compete with that and see if we can get a build that on paper looks pretty decent. But we'll see how recovery feels, and we'll see how it truly actually feels with in terms of its damage and the way trauma stacks. For budget, we will be using a Brightbeak main hand and an Aegis Aurora offhand with a 6-link on the chest. So instead of putting the gems into your weapon, you'll be in the 6-link on the chest. It should still give very, very good damage, like around 50 mil, I think, which is still very solid because Brightbeak has a ton of attack speed. So you ramp your trauma really, really, really fast. And again, we're stacking a ton of attack speed, stacking some duration to try and get trauma stacks up really, really high. My main concern is that, one, if we hit ourselves on the same tick that we get hit by a mob, we die because our max hit is below. That's my main concern. And my second concern is how does trauma really feel and how does double strike of momentum feel? Like this skill is like pure melee. It's like true melee. So we're not really sure how this is going to feel. And I think like it really depends on the skill, how fast we ramp, how does it actually feel to play, that kind of stuff. But this is the idea of the build. This is the build concept. I'll put the POB in the description below. And this is what I'm going to be playing after I finish farming. Like it's going to be like my goal this league, right? Farm Sanctum or Heist, make this build. I want to deep delve with it. I want to try for 6k. I'm not 100% sure, but I think these numbers are good enough for 6k. Fizz hit is a little bit low, but I've seen POBs for Delve that have hit 6k with like around the same Fizz hit. Chaos is like whatever. The rest of the elemental damages should be okay. And its damage should be high enough once we ramp trauma. And it's got evasion and block as double defense layers for mitigation, like avoidance. Okay, I think I've talked enough. But yeah, that's the build, that's the plans. And I will put out updates for the actual league starts once it happens tomorrow. But yeah, best of luck on league start to whoever's playing. And I hope you pick a good league starter and have a good time playing POE1 again. We're finally back after 1 year. And then nerf Sanctum too, man. Come on. Alright. Thanks for watching.